This is Kia Vancouver's Soccer Talk on AM 650. Now broadcasting from the Barber & Co. studios. Here's your host, Tyler Green.
It is Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk. We are broadcasting from the Barber & Co. studios. The second half kickoff brought to you by Global Scarves. Producing soccer scarves for over 40 years. Get scarves for your local club, organization, or school at globalscarves.com. Check them out today. globalscarves.com. Good evening, my name's Tyler Green, on Twitter at TylerGreenFC. Alongside me is Simon Fudge, Simon Fudge 74. We're talking MLS report cards, the All-Star game with Jonathan Tannenwald at 11:30 this evening. And of course, right now we're going to speak with former Vancouver Whitecaps goalkeeper Joe Cannon, an MLS great, goalkeeper of the year a couple times. It's quite the resume that Joe Cannon has, and now he can put joining us on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on that resume. Sounds pretty good. I think that should be the top thing on the resume, Joe.
Yeah, it's up there. Actually, someone sent me a link that I was the third most favorite athlete in Vancouver last year, and I hardly played. And I was like, it was behind two hockey guys, so I was like, that's probably the biggest resume builder right there, if anything. But you're not too far behind. For having me on. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well, Joe. I wanted to get you on and talk a variety of things. But first off, obviously, you're not retired just yet, but still in the back of your mind, a little bit of a playing time possibility, but also a new father. How's that going?
Oh, man, that is honestly, that is the toughest job I've ever experienced. I mean, for any new father, it's so funny. Everyone always tells you, you know what, get your sleep, get your rest. And you're like, yeah, whatever, I'm sleeping enough. Oh, man, I should have listened. So he is honestly the most rewarding thing in our lives. My wife is doing an incredible job because of my situation and not having a team this year. I've got a lot of time for him, and I'm taking advantage of that.
Yeah, and we just kind of talked about it a little bit before that, if you were still playing, that is cut in half, and you were kind of saying you don't even know how guys end up doing that.
Yeah, to me it's perplexing. I sent Nigel an email and I wished him the best, and I'm excited. I'll be headed up to Vancouver early next month in September, and so I'm excited to kind of catch up with him and see how he likes it. And I know Nigel even more so than me. I can't imagine. So it's and David Ousted just had some twins, so I'm sure. I think honestly, you just have to give a ton of credit to the wives. I mean, to be an MLS football wife is like it's like dealing with all the problems that the wags of England have, but none of the fame or fortune for that matter. So, you got to give these women a lot of credit.
Now, your son's a little bit younger than my daughter, and just wait till he learns the word no, because it's no to everything.
Well, that's why it's so important to spend this quality early time with him, so I can teach him to say no to his mom. And when Daddy's around, of course, be the good guy. I mean, this is prime brainwashing time, as
exactly.
you know. So.
Exactly. I've done the exact same thing. It's always fun time with Daddy.
Oh, exactly.
We're speaking with Joe Cannon here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on AM 650 radio. And Joe, one of the things we wanted to talk to you about was this goalkeeping situation in Philadelphia. They bring in a new guy to be the number one goalkeeper. And you were kind of in a similar situation here in Vancouver where they brought in David Ousted, and you're kind of left wondering what's next for you. What does a guy like Zach McMath have to think about that in Philadelphia now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. The differences is being Zach's the guy that they've courted for the last few years to be their number one. They brought him in. Another difference, though, is there's a new coaching change. Jim Curtin has taken over the reins from, the former regime, and now he's probably making a stamp that we're going in a different direction because one of the problems, that did plague John Heckworth was, the over-reliance on a young goalkeeper, but the timing of this whole thing does come at a weird point. I think the Union, their problems were not at the goalkeeper position. I think Zach's been playing the best he's ever played in his career. So in that sense, it's perplexing. On the big picture, there's probably something else going on, Tyler, whether it's Zach's going to be moved on somewhere. They've got number one draft pick in Andre Blake, and even down the line in their farm system, they have an under 20 standout who's supposedly to be the next big time goalie since Brad Guzan. So in Philly, it hasn't really worked out, like they thought it would. I mean, Zach, they kind of was baptism by fire, threw him right in there. And it's probably taken him a little bit longer to adjust and transition to the goalkeeper they want him to be. But I think he's there now, and I don't understand this move. On my end, it was such a surreal experience. You get benched from being the starter after you win, and then Brad comes in, and then even Brad he's probably more of the similar situation as Zach because he's at a younger age, and then they bring David in, and I think I like David Ousted. I think he's a good player for the future, and obviously if it didn't happen to me, I probably wouldn't take it too personally, but it's the vacation that was there from Martin Rennie. I think that was one of the reasons why they let him go, is that lack of communication with the players. But on the organizational standpoint, the Whitecaps have been great to me. They asked me if I wanted a send-off last year, and this was after the whole YP thing, and I was like, no, I'm not going to have anything at all, because the way YP went off was like a hero. I think mine would have been like some guy getting out of prison or something.
So no Joe Cannon testimonial?
We'll see, Tyler. I think, actually next month I'm headed up for that game when the Earthquakes visit the Whitecaps. So we'll see. I'll try to get on board. Maybe I'll have a little media game. We'll have you out there before, and I can actually save a shot or two.
Sounds good. We're speaking with Joe Cannon here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk. My name's Tyler Green. Alongside me, Simon Fudge.
Joe, just you've had a chance, obviously, to see all the keepers that are playing in the league this season. Can you give me a sense of who really is standing out in goal in MLS right now?
Yeah, I think what you saw in the beginning, obviously, Nick Raimondo was kind of the guy that kind of stood out. And, as far as performances, Clint Irwin had some good ones, especially out there in Vancouver, as you will, earlier on the season. When he came back from injury. But I think right now what you're seeing is a complete transition with the retirement of guys like Matt Reese, Kevin Hartman, myself. Matt Pickens is completely out of the fold. Zach Thornton's gone. There's just a new generation of kids. And becoming the name of Zach McMath, who I said before I thought had been playing very well. Bill Hamid, who had an incredible game against San Jose. His confidence has, just swollen with the reemergence and renaissance of DC United this year. I think Sean Johnson, one of the guys who I thought was going to have a good year again, who I think is one of the most consistent goalies, is Tally Hall, and that hasn't happened. Donovan Ricketts in Portland's been good, but I would say right now for me, Luis Robles is playing some good football as a goalie, and Sean and Bill are all up there along with Nick. But at this point in time, I think the goalkeeper of the year race is pretty wide open, and it's there for someone to take.
With probably Howard moving on as being the U.S. #1 goalkeeper after the incredible performance he put in the World Cup, who do you look at as being, beyond maybe Brad Guzan at Aston Villa, the keepers that really are going to become the ones that we would probably see play for the United States in a World Cup in Russia in 2018?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, honestly, what's going to happen is, so in the pool here, you've had Sean Johnson, you've had Bill Meade, Tally Hall comes to the winter camp, and Nick Raimondo. You've had kind of those four guys. It's been Sean and Bill. I think with Nick, when they go on trips, I honestly think one of those four guys, three actually, Sean, Bill, and then I'll add Zach McMath, and I'll even add Clint Irwin to that mix. I think one of those is going to have to go overseas at some point. I don't know where they are in their contracts, but for me, it just seems like the recipe for U.S. goalkeeping has groom a kid here, send him overseas, watch him grow, let him help us win a few games internationally. You know, what's going to end up happening, too, in the future is there's going to be a lot more international games. I think the U.S. is trying to get, you know, more stuff within CONCACAF, within, you know, Common Bowl. So, you know, if you were to say, you know, Joe, who would you put money on besides Brad Guzan? You know, for me, I did it. You know, I think Zach and Bill are probably there, Sean Johnson, but I think there's going to be some name that we don't even know yet, someone that hasn't had their chance, that might already be overseas. You have a few goalkeepers over there, you know, but it's really difficult. And then you even have a guy like Luis Robles. So it's wide open in that sense, especially with Nick Romano kind of in his, you know, twilight years in MLS, this next run up to the World Cup. So it's a great question, but, you know, I think maybe we can send one or two to Canada.
They could probably use the help. We're speaking with Joe Cannon here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on AM 650 Radio. Another guy here, Joe, from the Vancouver Whitecaps, former international with the U.S., Jada Merritt, retiring from the game of soccer due to some injuries as well as some other interests in business, etc. You were pretty much his first roommate here in Major League Soccer with the Whitecaps. Your thoughts on Jay's retiring from the game?
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere for me. I mean, you know, I knew Jay when he got on Twitter the first day. He was like so excited that he had this new audience to hear what he had to say. You know, I think for him, you know, it was crazy because I would watch him and see things that he posted, and he'd be doing stuff that I'd be like, well, you know, aren't you in the middle of a season? I don't know if you should be, you know, out in the middle of Pemberton with, but it turns out that was just a prelude to his retirement. And I think Jay, you know, he worked his butt off, his tail off to get in shape last year with, you know, Graham and Rick celebrating, Graham Poole and Jake and the medical staff to really try to get back in a timely fashion. And he did. And I think when it happened this year, I just don't know. You know, I've had a couple big injuries, and if the same thing or the same kind of thing happens again, it really takes a lot out of your sails. And for Jay, he didn't see, you know, enough upside, I'm sure, to really continue the fight, because it is a fight, especially the older you get. You've got to shut down everything you want to do off the field and completely focus to stuff that's only on the field. And while you're still doing that, you know, you don't know if it's going to work. And then on top of that, you know, no one's watching, no one's giving you any credit for the thing. It's a real lonely journey for an athlete to come back. And, you know, credit to Jay. His story, it's well publicized many times over. And you're exactly right, Tyler. I think Jay's mind, he is, you know, such a creative person, such an energetic person that he's got so much going for him outside of just playing soccer that, you know, I think for Jay it was the right time, and kudos to him for such an incredible career.
Joe, finally, as we're out of time here on the program with you, but what are you up to now? I know you're doing is it some radio work here? That's what's bringing you up to Vancouver?
Yeah, well, not initially. I'm just coming to Vancouver to kind of visit. I will be doing that game radio, but that's not the reason why. The reason why is because my wife and I, we love Vancouver. You know, we almost consider it a second home now after the incredible years. Still involved in the game, especially at the youth level. I think right now we're kind of taking this year to really see, you know, what direction we want to go in. I think the important thing that my wife and I decided was we wanted to raise our child near my big family here in the Bay Area and right next to her family, which, you know, they all live within a 10-mile square radius. So that was the number one thing. And then after that, we just decided, hey, we've got where, and I'll figure it out. So you're exactly right. I want to stay involved in MLS. That will get bigger as, you know, I decide that I've definitely moved on. And but, you know, giving back to especially the young kids in the game, you know, I think that's at the forefront of my priorities as well. So thanks for having me on. Good luck, and I look forward to, you know, keeping in touch with you guys and being on the show once in a while, Tyler. Great to hear your voice.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe, and look forward to seeing you up here in Vancouver.
Awesome. Yep. Don't forget to say hi in the press box, okay?
Will do. Joe Cannon joining us here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk. We thank Joe for joining us here on the program, talking goalkeepers and kind of what he's up to next. He's doing some radio work as well with with some of the San Jose Earthquakes broadcasts. So always interesting to chat with Joe Cannon.
He's always got something in, but his great knowledge and certainly his real good understanding of all the goalkeepers in the league is great to sort of hear. And it's very interesting that even he, I think like myself, sees a very sort of wide open sort of array of promising talent that we see amongst goalkeepers in this league right now.
Yeah, and Joe, if you see some guy, great goalkeeper that perhaps can live in Canada, send him up to us. We could use one for the Canadian national team.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, get into Kia Vancouver. Mention my name. Say $500. Pretty much that simple. Go to Kia Vancouver. Say Tyler Green from Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk sent me. I want to save $500 on this new car. Kia Vancouver, 396 Southwest Marine Drive at Yukon, KiaVancouver.com. The manager's rant is next.
This is Kia Vancouver's Soccer Talk on AM 650. Now broadcasting from the Barber & Co. studios. Here's your host, Tyler Green.
When do we start to worry about the Vancouver Whitecaps this season? Just one win in their last 9 matches, but hey, they got a whole whackload of ties. 6 of them, to be exact. While it's time to start worrying about whether there's a playoff in the Whitecaps' future, I'm not overly concerned with that aspect because, hey, it is the first year of Carl Robinson, and he's putting together a team in the image he wants to do it in, and that's going to take a little bit of time. But what I am a little bit concerned about are just a few of the key breakdowns that are happening, as well as possibly some of the players getting a little bit more consistent in their performances. And they need to do that starting soon. Yes, they have a young team. It's the lowest average team age in Major League Soccer. But those players also have a little bit of MLS experience. A young guy like Gershon Kofi has already played over 100 games. Darren Maddox will hit 60 if he plays against Sporting KC next weekend. Eric Hurtado has over 30, Kakuta Mane almost has 40, and Russell Tybert has over 50 games to his credit, etc., etc. The list goes on. Yeah, they're young, but they do have experience, and at some point you need to know whether these players are good enough, and really it's up to those players to start putting in consistent efforts and consistent performances. So while I'm not overly concerned with some of the results, because hey, they're still getting a lot of points, they're still getting a lot of draws, and managing to get points, some in away conditions, but I am concerned that some of these players aren't meeting some of those expectations and are starting to put in consistent performances.
That's true. And I think for me, it is a situation where what do you expect the players to be able to do? They're young. Some are young, and we keep hearing about potential. But they are in the league. This league has raised itself to such a level that, you know, you've got to be able to perform or you won't last. And I think at some point, these young players have got to come to the point where we see something from them this season that says to us that they're capable of really doing something in this league going forward, beyond even this 2014 campaign.
Yeah, and I like the fact that, hey, Carlisle Mitchell had a poor performance last week. He sticks with him, and he rewards him with a relatively good performance midweek against Chicago. Well, now next week, I'm expecting, okay, you had a very good performance. You should be able to keep your level up at that performance. If you want a regular gig in Major League Soccer, that's what you need week in, week out. Eric Hurtado got a second chance after just a terrible game against FC Dallas. I think pretty much everybody was questioning how he got to stay in, and again, underperformed in my opinion against Chicago. And here's a guy that went, 5 games in a row scoring a goal? So which Eric Hurtado is the Eric Hurtado? It's time for these guys to start performing on a consistent basis. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that the Whitecaps need right now.
This team is not playing in a development league. It's playing in the result league right now, and it's time that they start developing into getting results, and results now.
You're listening to Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk here on AM 650 Radio. My name's Tyler Green. His name is Simon Fudge. Somebody who is developing quite nicely, actually, is Tesho Akindele. And, of course, he's getting a lot of talk whether or not he, one, will play for Canada, and two, whether or not he has gotten a call yet. And we talked about this on last weekend's program, that we thought that he should at least get a call, and we said, well, we don't know. We don't know if maybe Benito Floro has called him, and he's said no yet. Well, after the game last weekend, when FC Dallas was here in Vancouver, reporters got together and basically asked Tesho Akindele, has anyone called him yet from the Canadian Soccer Association?
Nobody's called me yet. I heard some stuff at the beginning of the season, like they might call me, but nobody's called me recently, and it'll just be a good opportunity if they do call me.
And he is able to play for a couple different teams. Canada, he's spent a lot of time in the U.S. There's other talk of another nation as well that he could play for. Has anyone called him to play for their national teams or even come to a camp at all?
Nobody else has called me, so I'd say I'm leaning towards Canada.
So you like the fact that he's leaning towards Canada, but as we talked about in the starting 11 earlier in the program, he needs to get a phone call, and he needs to be in that friendly that they've got coming up in Toronto against Jamaica.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he deserves the chance to have a look at. It's the perfect scenario for him to be called in. It's a North American friendly against a CONCACAF opponent. Should be seeing nothing but MLS players being called into that side. I think that's what Benito Floro will take as the opportunity to do so. I mentioned it earlier with Will Johnson. He needs to have him come into the squad, have a close look at him up close, because I don't think he's had a chance to do that either. But big opportunity here for the national team to take this kid in and potentially see if they've got someone in here that could be one of their main strikers going forward in the next couple of years.
And it's one of those things in the past that we've seen from Canadian soccer where they haven't called players, and finally players are just kind of fed up and decide, well, I'm going to go play for this team or I'm going to go play for that team. Make it so this player knows that you have interest, that you want him to play. And then the biggest thing for Canada is if a player has options to go play elsewhere, you cap tie that guy as soon as you can, so he can't go anywhere else.
Absolutely, and that's
you got to be ruthless.
You've got to be ruthless, especially if you really do desire that you want him in the program. Yes.
Tesho Akindele also talked a little bit about that Canadian buzz, and here's what he had to say after the game last week about the fact that he is getting talked about here in Canada.
I'm thankful that Canada's there's a buzz around my name with Canada. I'm just thankful for that more than frustrated with anything else.
And what his is it his performances, or why does he think that he's getting mentioned to play for the Canadian men's national team?
I think that lately the team's been struggling to score goals, and they see somebody scoring goals. Everybody's kind of excited about that, so hopefully I can be that guy.
So what sort of attributes do you think you'd bring to the table if you did step in there and got some minutes with the national team?
I think I'm a hard-working person. I can score goals, and I've got some speed. So I think those are three things I'd bring to the team.
So there you go. He does know how to score some goals. We've seen him able to score goals, and that is something that Canada's kind of missing right now. They have guys that seemingly have the ability to score goals, but maybe he's just that fresh injection of a player that could, in fact, actually score goals for the national team. Though we haven't seen in a long time somebody that has been able to score on a consistent basis.
He also brings size and athleticism, which I think would match up well against, big, huge, monster center backs from Central America. And I think that would be the thing. If he does need quite a bit of polish, but I think, the physical stature that he brings, and the improving abilities that he has makes him a very, very good prospect.
We haven't seen a quality goal scorer since Carlo Corazine won the Golden Boot at the 2000 Gold Cup.
Or the great tandem of Catliffe and Mobilio, for that matter.
Very, very true. Very true. That 2000 Gold Cup team, by the way, getting inducted into the the Hall of Fame there.
Well deserved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very good honor, and fun to see all those guys. And I know Carlo, talking about it with him, saying one of his proudest moments ever to be a part of that team. So congratulations. But maybe, Teshin Akindele, maybe he's the next big goal scorer for Canada. We can only hope.
We can only hope
that.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get a look. I think he'll probably get called to that squad. I think he will play for Canada, but we can only hope that he does, in fact, become a goal scorer for Canada.
We're doing a lot of hoping here, aren't we?
Tonight's Barber Poll brought to you by Barber & Co. Get the authentic straight razor shave or haircut, whatever you need, barberandco.ca. Who should win the MLS All-Star game, Bayern Munich or the MLS All-Stars? Tweet us your thoughts at Soccer Talk 650, Tyler Green FC. Free lifetime car washes, oil changes, and get this, free lifetime airport shuttle and parking service, Southwest Marine Drive at Yukon. It's Kia Vancouver, KiaVancouver.com. Coming up later on the program, it's the segment everyone loves. It's Hot Fudge. But up next, we're going to talk Philly goalkeeping and the MLS All-Star Game with our MLS insider, Jonathan Tannenwald, is next.
This is Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on AM 650. Follow us on Twitter at Soccer Talk 650 and at Tyler Green FC. This is Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on AM 650. Now broadcasting from the Barber & Co. studios. Here's your host, Tyler Green.
Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk and Kia Vancouver, 396 Southwest Marine Drive at Yukon, KiaVancouver.com. I'm driving a new Kia Sorento. And hey, you can too, and you can save $500 when you mention my name only at Kia Vancouver. Joining us now on the program is Philly.com writer. He covers the U.S. men's national team and Major League Soccer for that publication. He is our MLS insider. He is Jonathan Tannenwald. Jonathan, thanks again for joining us here on the show.
I guess I'll take the compliment. It's quite great to be here.
Well, thanks again, Jonathan, as always. And first off, let's start with what's happening in your fair city in Philadelphia, where you're from. A new goalkeeper there in Philly. Is this a good move, do you think, for the Union?
No, it's not. In fact, it's a completely unnecessary move. They have two starting caliber goalkeepers in Major League Soccer already. And Zach McMath, the incumbent, and Andre Blake, who was the number one overall draft pick in the Super Draft in 2014, by far the best college prospect in the entire pool, and a guy who will likely be starting for Jamaica next summer at the Gold Cup and then going into World Cup qualifying. Now, the truth is that the Philadelphia front office sees both of those players as tradable assets and not as players to go win a championship with. Their goal is to trade McMath within MLS, I think, and eventually to sell Blake to Europe for 7 figures if they can get away with it. And they think that they can park Blake here for a while because he's Generation Adidas. It's a dumb way to run a team. Raíssa Bolli is a very good player. I don't dispute that. I think he will be an upgrade in goal over both Zach McMath and Andre Blake. But it wasn't necessary when, stop me, Tyler, if you heard this before, this is a team that needs a center back and a striker.
So when you look at this move, then, how do guys like Andre Blake and Zach McMath actually feel? Do they want out now? Do they say, hey, I'm fed up here now? Because this can't be good for the team.
I'm sure McMath in particular wants out now because he was fed up with them when they drafted Blake in January. Mm-hmm. He was at the Super Draft because it was in Philadelphia, and a couple of people saw him out in the back of the hall screaming at his agent. So, look, this team's got talent, but it's got enormous flaws.
Right.
And they aren't going to be fixed at the rate things are going, from what I can tell. I don't have especially much confidence in the Philadelphia front office to fix the problem.
We're talking to Jonathan Tannenwald of Philly.com, our MLS insider here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk. Jonathan, it is about the 2/3 mark here of the MLS season. For some teams it is, for others it's not, but relatively close there. So a little bit of a recap and a review of some of the teams here. Who do you think in Major League Soccer is the best team right now, and where they necessarily the best team that everyone thought they would be at the start of the year?
What do I think the best team is right now? This might surprise you. I think it's the Los Angeles Galaxy. For as well as Seattle has played, I think we saw on Monday night that there is one team that they simply can't beat, and that's Los Angeles when they're at full strength.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle may well win the Supporters' Shield, but I would be very nervous if I was a Sounders fan going into the playoffs.
And were they the team that you thought at the beginning of the year, or did you have somebody else in mind?
Well, I think Seattle's always at or near the top of the list because of the talent that they have and the resources that they have. Los Angeles inevitably ends up being near the top of the list as well. And I had Kansas City and Toronto and New York as the best teams in the East, and the Eastern Conference has proven once again, unfortunately, to be rather middling, and nobody has yet emerged. I think Kansas City probably will when all is said and done. I think Toronto FC is a very good team with a lot of potential. If they can get everybody together and healthy, they could make a deep playoff run as well. That said, the other team, I expect to at least have a much better record than they have right now, is the Portland Timbers. They've been incredibly confusing, and in a lot of ways they've been incredibly disappointing this season. They just have not yet been able to put it all together. Now, there's every possibility that they will put it together and start just absolutely steamrolling teams because everybody knows the amount of talent that they have. Mm-hmm. But they haven't done it yet, and it's almost August, and that starts to mean you're running out of time.
When you look at the teams right now, it might be the worst team in Major League Soccer, but standings-wise, but who do you think is the worst team right now at this point in the season?
I think you just dropped a hint, didn't you?
Well, I try.
That there might be some people in Vancouver who want to hear the words Montreal and Impact, aren't there?
Oh, everyone in Vancouver loves taking the piss out of Montreal, so of course.
Well, that might just be happening. So,
well, so much confusion there as to what is going on that I can definitely see why they would get that pick as the worst team. You kind of mentioned Vancouver, though, as a lot of people would like to see Montreal as the worst team. What do people outside of Vancouver actually think of the Whitecaps?
Well, let me say this real quick about Montreal before I answer that question. What a bombshell that Nick DeSantis was removed as the technical director. After 20 years of association with the club, and obviously he's going to stay on in an administrative capacity, but it is a reminder, and I had some people criticize me about this on Twitter. I understand why, but, yes, it's a single-entity league. Yes, there's a lot of rules that are put in place to promote competitive balance, but the amount of accountability now, the standard in MLS is the highest it's ever been, and the accountability now in MLS finally is catching up to that. And if you're not good enough, you're going to have to go. And I think we saw that in Montreal, and I know there are a lot of teams in MLS whose fans would love to have an owner as passionate as Joey Saputo, even if he doesn't always get it right. So about Vancouver, I really like him. I make no secret of that. And Tyler, I've said that to you and to a lot of your listeners who follow me on Twitter. They've got some really tremendous attacking players, Pedro Morales, Sebastian Fernandez, and the speed that they have in Kakuta Mana and Eric Hurtado and Aaron Maddox. That might be the fastest group of attacking players in the league when they are in full flight. They are a joy to watch. Now, yes, they need some defensive reinforcements. I think everybody knows that. But they are a team that will attract the purists and end up breaking their hearts in the playoffs. That's my biggest fear about them. And it's unfortunate, but people in the States are waking up to what the Whitecaps are doing because they're incredibly entertaining.
If they can just get a victory and stop getting all the ties. You're listening to Kia Vancouver.
I understand that. Yeah. I don't want to cut your commercial read off. Obviously, I know it's very important. I understand that. But the there are times when I think that the impulse of the Vancouver, everybody I know in Vancouver, whether fans or media, the immediate impulse when they go up 1-0 is they're going to blow it. And so when Carl Robinson tries to play for a 1-0 result, and if it ends 1-0, it gets labeled as boring and dreadful, and what happened to the creative and attacking Whitecaps? And when they end up tying 3-3, everybody complains that they couldn't win the game.
True enough. You're listening to Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk here on AM 650 Radio in Vancouver. My name's Tyler Green. Sitting beside me, Simon Fudge. We're speaking with Jonathan Tannenwald, Philly.com writer, MLS insider for us here on the program.
Jonathan, Toronto SC Wednesday night lost in D.C. It was a dreadful performance by them. They've been having a really difficult time of late and have burned a lot of their games in hand amongst the teams around them in the Eastern Conference. For all the hype that they had coming into the season, where do you see this Toronto SC side going forward over the next crucial couple of months?
Well, so much of it depends on the health of their back line, doesn't it? Stephen Caldwell's had some injury problems. You know, if he and Daniil Henry and Justin Morrow are out there and Jackson are out there, they should be fine, and I think they will be fine in the end. And the reasons why I think they will be fine are fairly obvious. They are Michael Bradley and Jermaine Defoe. Defoe is an extraordinary goal scorer, even still in an MLS where, look, okay, I know it's not the Premier League. I've never said it's the Premier League, but it's a very physical league. It's a fast league. And if you don't come in and prove yourself, somebody who's fresh out of college or new at this and wanted to make a point will come and knock you around a little bit. And he's proven that he's up to that challenge, and he's been a leader for them, and I think I've been very impressed by him. Michael Bradley, at the end of the day, is a winner, plain and simple. He is a leader. He has great vision. I know he didn't have the best World Cup, but the propensity of everybody in Toronto to jump on him for every single little mistake baffles me, and it's too bad because I think they have the talent to make a run in the playoffs. But again, it's almost a little bit like Vancouver. Everybody starts panicking at the drop of a hat, and I don't think that helps.
As opposed, thinking of the team they played on Wednesday night, DC United, going into tomorrow's game away to Houston, only one defeat in their last 8 games, 4 straight wins. They're going very, very well right now, and under Ben Olsen, it's been an incredible turnaround.
I've known Ben Olsen for a long time. I used to live in Washington. I've been an admirer of him from afar for many, many years. And I knew watching that DC United team last year that Ben Olsen should not have been blamed for their struggles because they simply didn't have the talent. And, you know, people are criticizing Frank Klopas for struggling in Montreal this year. You look at the players on that team, the players aren't that good. Montreal, if Klopas gets the kinds of players that he can coach and win with next year, they might have a dramatic turnaround too. It's certainly possible. But, you know, Eddie Johnson has made a difference. Having Luis Silva healthy has made a difference. And bringing in some established MLS veterans, guys like Bobby Boswell, the anchor of the back line, has helped a lot. And I don't know what they're going to do in the playoffs, but certainly I think that Ben Olsen is probably right now the leading candidate to be Coach of the Year.
Jonathan Tannenwald joining us here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on AM 650 Radio in Vancouver. Jonathan, let's switch gears here and quickly take a look at the MLS All-Star Game happening on Wednesday. How
are people actually talking about it in Vancouver? I heard they weren't.
You know what? Nobody wanted a Vancouver player there, but I've actually had about 7 people asking me if I could get them tickets, if I could get them into the game somehow. So people are interested in it. But how much overall is the interest in this game, and how big is this game for Major League Soccer in terms of potentially turning that one fan into an MLS fan, or even just money-wise for the league?
Well, look, it is one of the marquee spectacles of the year in Major League Soccer, and certainly on the corporate side of things, which is important. You know, it's a big deal for the sponsors. It's a big deal for potential sponsors, for the television broadcasters. And when you get a team like Bayern Munich into the United States to play as the opposition, that's really important. Now, it opens up the possibility that they're going to get blown out. Of course it does. Because Bayern Munich is bringing really its first team over, and they're to be commended for that. But It was in Philadelphia 2 years ago, and it really captured the city's attention. I know if it came to Vancouver, for as much as everybody likes to rag on it, it would be the hottest ticket in town. And what that reminds us of is that even though, look, I know the core fan bases, especially in Cascadia, don't want their players in the game because they don't want them playing extraneous, non-league action.
Right.
I understand that. But there is more than just the core fan base out there. And it's the case in Vancouver, and it's the case in Philadelphia, and I dare say it's even the case in Portland. And it's the case in Toronto, too. And there are plenty of people, Tyler, who we both come across all over North America all the time, who believe that they are the only MLS fans in the world, and the core fan base is the only people that matters and should be catered to. And that's not true. You cannot grow the league if you're only catering to the core support. You have to acknowledge the fact that there's 15,000 other people in the stadium, and they have an interest in watching this game, and they're not absolute diehard following every single player who's down at the USL Pro affiliate, but they matter. Mm-hmm. And that's a fan base that the MLS needs to grow, and we do it by capturing the attention of people who follow other forms of soccer besides MLS, and the All-Star Game is a great way to do it.
Jonathan, you kind of mentioned the possibility that there could be a blowout with so many of Bayern Munich's first-team players. It is our Barber & Co. Barber poll today. Who do you think will win this season's version of the MLS All-Star Game?
I think Bayern Munich will win, but look, if it's 3-2 instead of 4-1, I think that'll be perfectly respectable. I was at the New York Red Bulls versus Arsenal game at Red Bull Arena last weekend. It was very enjoyable. There were 25,000 Arsenal fans and 2,000 Red Bulls fans in the building, but I'm fairly certain, because I know a lot of people who went to that game from New York and Philadelphia and Washington and Boston. There are a lot of people who follow Arsenal and their MLS team, or they follow Spurs and their MLS team, and so on and so forth. But you and I, all three of us really, we all know there are plenty of people who think that the English game is inherently superior, and they live in MLS markets, and they do know that the MLS team exists, but they sort of dismiss it as being not worth their time going to. And
right.
When you have occasions like this where they can see the caliber of player in the league, New York put out its first team for all intents and purposes and won the game. When you see something like that, maybe people will step back and realize, you know what, the quality of this league isn't that bad. Maybe it's time to give it a real chance.
Jonathan, always can chat with you for so much longer, but we're out of time. Thanks for joining us here, and we'll talk again very, very soon.
It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing the Whitecaps in person against Kansas City next weekend. And I will mention, by the way, that a lot of people did not want any Whitecaps in the game. After Pedro Morales had that great performance against Dallas, a bunch of people told me he should have been an All-Star.
Yeah, a lot of people still, they don't want their Whitecaps in the All-Star game, but they would love to see Pedro Morales and see what he could do against Bayern Munich. Jonathan, thanks again, and we'll see you next weekend.
A pleasure.
Jonathan Tannenwald, Philly.com writer, covers Major League Soccer, the U.S. men's national team for that publication, of course, is our MLS insider here on Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk. Always a pleasure to talk with Jonathan Tannenwald. Quick stoppage in play here on the show, but back in a minute with the final cut and everything, the thing everyone wants to hear. It's hot fudge.
This is Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on AM 650. Follow us on Twitter at Soccer Talk 650 and at Tyler Green FC. Back. This is Kia Vancouver's Soccer Talk on AM 650. Now broadcasting from the Barber & Co. studios. Here's your host, Tyler Green.
And only at Kia Vancouver, free lifetime car washes, oil changes, and get this, free lifetime airport, shuttle, and parking service. Southwest Marine Drive at Yukon, KiaVancouver.com.
Oh, baby. Hot fudge with Simon Fudge.
1/3 of the way through the long weekend. If you haven't done so already, I think it's time for for anyone out there to just get out and go somewhere and enjoy this long weekend. Go to the beach, go to the lake, go fishing, go into the woods and have a hike. Just whatever takes your fancy, just get out and go away.
Just go away, Simon.
Just go away.
You go away.
That's right.
I'm going away to Osoyoos. You're going away to
the island.
The island.
Yeah.
Christina's going away camping for the final couple of days here on this lovely August long weekend. It is time for the Final Cut, brought to you by Barber & Co. on Twitter at Barber & Co. for full-service barbershops for your big haircut, hot shave, buzz cut, fade, and beard trim. Get the ultimate barbershop experience. 4 locations to serve you in Gastown, Yaletown, the Financial District, or the new location at Cambie and 18th, barberandco.ca. And for the Final Cut today, 2 things. 1, Monday, it is the MLS homegrown game. Watch it. Get to know some of these young players that we don't necessarily get to see game in, game out. Still developing. And some, you never get to see because really the Whitecaps will only play a team once, and it might be on the road, and they might not play in that game. So watch that game. 2, watch the MLS All-Star game. Yeah, it's a glorified friendly, but you're going to see some of the best players in Major League Soccer ply their trade in a game. And you get to see Bayern Munich, a team that is chock full of players that just hoisted the World Cup trophy. So the Whitecaps might not have played this weekend, but there are some very fun things to look forward to heading into next week. Basically, next Sunday when Sporting Kansas City comes to town, a very good team as well. Some fun soccer to watch over the next week here.
Absolutely. And I think this could be actually one of the more enjoyable must-see All-Star games that we've seen in some time. So, yeah, I think good atmosphere, right place to go for it, and yeah, it could be a good game for sure.
And we talked about it at the beginning in the starting 11, but you think the MLS All-Stars are going to win? Or Bayern Munich?
I'm going to take Bayern Munich, actually. Yeah, no, I think they'll come out and they'll win the game. One by a goal.
I'm gonna go with the MLS All-Stars. The Bayern Munich, most of the players been there for about a week training. I think it's early. I think I'm gonna go with the All-Stars winning this one.
Who scores the winning goal?
I don't know. For the crew here at Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk, my co-host Simon Fudge, executive producer Christina, producer Greg the Hammer Ballack, and our very special producer today, Dangerous Dwayne Bishop. A special thank you to Thomas Rage and Fred Anko. Thank you for your continued support. Quoting a good friend of mine, go out and enjoy yourself, but be safe. My name's Tyler Green. Thank you for listening. You can download the podcast at am650radio.com. Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk next Saturday at 10 right here on AM650 Radio.
Follow us on Twitter at Soccer Talk 650 and at Tyler Green FC. This is Kia Vancouver Soccer Talk on AM 650.